growth, development. You also have challenges that are in some ways unique to the present age, dealing with technology, dealing with the current social and educational climate. And so the Center for Family Care represents the devotion of some talented professionals of our Archdiocese, members of the clergy and lay persons who have felt for a very long time that we needed to have a good resource for raising an Orthodox family. And it really makes sense from our point of view because, frankly, we've had 3 or 4 religious education directors of the Archdiocese, and our own Metropolis religious education director mentioned that the proper education of children begins with the proper education of the parents, and in turning the home not only into the katechon ecclesia, the microcosm of the church within the house, but also building up the roots of the family, so that it's not just that you're turning the house into a classroom, but instead you're turning your family dynamic into a class on how to be a good Orthodox Christian. So Melissa Tsongranis is the nerve center of our Center for Family Care, and she has graced us with her presence today to present on what is family ministry and how can we enact it within our communities. So I said without further ado before, I'm not going to say it again. Melissa Tsongranis.
Your Eminence, Reverend Fathers, ladies and gentlemen, it is really wonderful to be here in the Pittsburgh Metropolis, and a little something that probably very few people in this room know about me. I actually used to live in the Pittsburgh Metropolis. When I was really young, I lived in Library, Pennsylvania, went to Holy Cross in Mount Lebanon, had Father Nick's mother as my Sunday school teacher, had Nick Chakis in my Greek school class with me, at which he told me that there's a tunnel that you can drive in from here all the way to Greece. And I believed him. So I was young, but nonetheless, those are my memories, which are few but strong from when we lived here. I was probably in around third through fifth grade. So I'm really excited to be with you here today and to talk about this ministry we have at the Archdiocese. You know, for a long time, whenever I present, I'd say we're a brand new ministry. And somebody came up to me and kindly said, "It's been 9 years, you can't say that anymore." So I won't say that, but I feel like we're just now kind of figuring out what family is. When we were handed this ministry, it was somewhat overwhelming because family is big, it's huge, it's everything. And trying to define out what that means and what that means to ministry when we have so many needs that are out there and what to focus on first. And we're still teasing that out. But since then, I think we've talked to some good and knowledgeable people, we've gotten input, we've set some definitions, some foundations, some vision statements, and that's what I really want to talk about here today, is kind of setting that foundation for family ministry. And as I begin to talk about it, it just makes sense for me to first talk a little bit about my family. This is a picture of my family by one of my favorite artists. He just recently left his Picasso phase and has entered into a more realistic phase of coloring family. So you can actually see there are 3 members in our family: my husband George, myself, and our son Nomikos. There is a family resemblance, you can definitely see that. I'm just happy he's out of the Picasso phase because I had quite a few eyes during that time, which I guess is appropriate for a mother. But nonetheless, this is our family, and we live at St. Basil's Academy and work for the Center for Family Care, serving the church. But there's another part of family that I'd be remiss if I didn't say anything about. And that's this family. This is my home parish in Modesto, California. And my father is from Massachusetts, my mother's from North Carolina, and we ended up, after leaving Pittsburgh, in California. And when we moved to Modesto, my mother said, "We don't have family here, so the church is now our family." And I remember she looked at the map and said, here's the church, here's the circle where we can find our house, because we're going to be very close to the church, because we're going to be there all the time. And that's how we were raised. So much so, and at the time I don't think I realized how important this was, but when I was a teenager, I think a senior in high school, one of my friends passed away. And they notified everyone at school, and they brought his friends into the office to tell them. And they said, you can call your parents and have them come get you so that you can go home and, breathe. And my parents weren't reachable before cell phones. Imagine not being reachable. They weren't reachable. And I said, do you have any grandparents, aunts, or uncles, or anyone that we could call? And I didn't hesitate at all. I said, we'll call Father John, he'll come get me. And he did. And he spent the day with me, and helped me, and took me over to a friend of ours' house who was home from college, who knew the boy that passed away. But that's how much that my church was my family. As a teenager, I called my parish priest as my emergency person. So this is what we're talking about, these two aspects of family today. We have, in the traditional sense, we know that family is comprised of parents and children in a household all brought together by divine grace. This is the domestic church. But additionally, it must be understood that the church, the body of Christ, establishes a broader dimension of family, though a very real spiritual relationship established through the baptism that unites all of its members. We are all one family in Christ. And this is critical for us to remember as we begin looking at family ministry in our parents. So what is family ministry in the church? As we've just said, family is the body of Christ. Ministry is serving the needs of others. So family plus ministry is the body of Christ, the church, serving the needs and the life of family, and the family serving the needs of one another. And I want to stress that, the families serving the needs of one another. Because in a family, it's not one person that takes care of everyone, or at least it shouldn't be. We need to all take care of one another. That doesn't mean that Father Pandalemon is in charge of all the family ministry. He's in charge of connecting all the parishioners together and making them a family. He is the leader of that family, but that everyone in the parish is responsible for this, for being part of this family. And that's a critical thing for us to remember as we're going forth in this. So after we kind of tussled around with this definition of family that changes and grows as we continue to do work with families, I really, this morning, your remarks, Your Eminence, were really helpful and far more knowledgeable than mine. But the idea that, when we picture family, unfortunately the image that comes to mind is not what all of our families look like now. And we need to be very cautious in how we present family and family activities, because we're all family. Young, old, single, married. Which brings me to kind of our first foundational principle of family ministry, is that it's for all people, all ages, and all stages of life. This is a picture of St. Basil's family. We really need to make sure that good family ministry reaches all the different populations during all the different stages of family life. From cradle to grave is what they say. And it brings them together into the parish to grow and learn from one another. When you have multi-age populations, they have a lot to learn from one another. I want to highlight several special needs populations, okay? Because I think there's certain times in the family life cycle that are critical, that need extra support, that we need to really make sure we're reaching out to those populations. The first one is, I want to talk about young couples. And I'm not going to talk about couples with before they get married in premarital prep, although we do have a program for that. The reason why is because, and I can attest to it, and I'm sure many of you can too, when you're getting ready to get married, premarital preparation is essential. However, there's a level of delusion that occurs from planning a wedding that makes you not dealing with reality when you're getting married that you don't realize until you actually get in that marriage. And I remember very clearly going through premarital preparation, and the priest that was helping us said, at some morning you're going to wake up and look at your husband and think, what have I done? And I remember my now husband and I looking at each other after that call and saying, but we're so good at communicating. We won't be like that. You know, we're special. We really, really love each other. So there's a level of that going on during premarital preparation that you can't prepare for marriage. But then the reality hits for young couples that my marriage doesn't look like it looks in the movies, that this man is driving me crazy or this woman is making me nuts. And these young couples, because of what society feeds us, of what love is in a relationship, and that it's not necessarily all the sacrifice, which is what the church teaches us, we need to be right there to say this is totally normal. This is what marriage is. Dr. Albert Rossi came and spoke to the students at Holy Cross, and he said, your spouse isn't your soulmate, he's your sandpaper, you know, roughing off the edges, you know, smoothing you out and stuff. So it's important that for those young couples, we make sure we're there for them and pair them up with other couples so that they can see they're not alone. And that this is, and especially, I hate to say with social media right now, everybody puts up there everything that's good in their life. So you see pictures of couples walking on the beach and doing all these lovely things, and you think, gosh, we don't do that much or enough. They do it all the time. But, you know, we present our best foot forward. So we need to make sure we're there telling couples this is normal. The next population kind of couples right off of that, right off of that is young families. When children enter the picture, it is such a transition in your marital life that those families, again, need to know that this is hard. It's very hard. And they need support, and they need other parents around them. Again, this is where we talk about the community. It's not just the priest's job. It's a priest's job or somebody else in the community to introduce them to other parents that are in their same stage, but to connect them in a way that they can feel like we're not alone. Because families make connections naturally. Isn't it nice if we make those connections in the church and we're all growing in the church? So young couples. Now I'm going to talk about a population that we don't hear much about when we talk about family ministry, but every single time I present, somebody comes up and pulls me aside and tells me about this. Someone will come up to me and say, you know what, I'm 52 years old and I never got married. And I don't know where I fit in my parish family. There's these programs for youth, there's these programs for family, and I don't feel like I belong, and I want to fit in. And I'm telling you this so that you can be sensitive to this population. I actually got an email recently from a woman who was that age. She said, this might even sound crazy. She's like, but it's hard being single at 52. She's like, the Goya was doing a talk on purity. And I felt like I wanted to go. She goes, I knew it wouldn't be appropriate. But where's my people to talk with me about striving in purity and living a pure life? Where are my people to connect with? Now, that doesn't mean that every parish needs to start a young singles group, you know, for a singles group for older singles and stuff. It just means we need to be aware of everyone's struggles and be there and say, you know, I know this is hard, and walk with them in their struggles. And the final population that I think we sometimes marginalize a little bit is senior citizens. They have such a wealth to pass on to our children, our teenagers, young families, and we really need to tap into them. It's a beautiful way to build a parish by bringing yayas and papus and having them help with children and such. So consider those populations as we talk about all, but all people, all ages and stages is what we're talking about. The next area I want to talk about is that family ministry absolutely must be striving to make people active participants in the life of the church. And I know you might think that sounds like a no-brainer, okay? Of course, that's what we're all striving to do in all of our ministries. But I want you to really, really think about what that means. Everything in church should serve the purpose of getting families intrinsically motivated to grow spiritually, to make them want to learn more about God, to make them want to come to church. And what we need to ask ourselves, it's fine to have social events. I'm not saying we don't have them. But the people that are only coming to social events, how are we making room for the Holy Spirit to touch them at those events? How are we putting something in there that's going to somehow get them interested in more spiritual matters? How are we getting people to focus back on Christ? I remember when I was a teenager, and I know that you guys have a fabulous summer camp program here. I'm also part of a summer camp program. And when I was a teenager, I remember, going to church was more of a social thing for me. I was very involved in the church, but I don't know that I was spiritually engaged in the liturgy when I went. And then I went to summer camp. And I remember we had been learning about what the liturgy was and breaking it down, and I'd never heard these things before about the liturgy is the work of the people. We're supposed to be involved. And we all went to church at camp, and we all sang, and we all prayed together, and it was the most beautiful liturgy I'd ever been to. And I remember our counselor looking at us going, that was a gift from God. Going forward, you have to work every Sunday when you're there. It's the work of the people. So what are we doing to have those moments to people that are just going through the motions on Sunday, to touch their hearts and stuff, to think about ways that we can get them involved more, to be intrinsically motivated? That's the key. Not just going through the motions of being Orthodox, but doing it because they're in love with God and they want to know more about Him and they want to be in His church. Okay, I want to show you a quick video. I'm hoping the sound on this is going to work out for our next kind of vision statement.
There are 52 weeks in a year. That means that there are 52 weekends that a person could possibly come to church. 52 weeks that a child could come to experience Kid City for a 1-hour service. But we know that with vacations, sickness, travel for sports, a perfect attendance record at church is not exactly realistic. On average, a child in a family that normally attends church is attending approximately 40 weekends a year. 40 hours that Kid City has to lead and foster the spiritual direction of your child. 40 hours a year. That's it. However, a parent or legal guardian of the same child has approximately 3,000 hours with which to teach, communicate, and to lead. Not 40, 3,000. So who should be in charge of our children's spiritual formation? Deuteronomy 6 says it this way. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength. These commandments that I give you today are to be upon your hearts. Impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates. Kid City has 40 hours. You have 3,000. 3,000 hours to lead and foster the spiritual direction of your child. So, is it possible that what happens at home is more important than what happens at church?
Now, I disagree with the end. I don't know that I'd say what happens at home is more important than what happens at church. But I think we need to give some attention to what's happening at home and other areas of our Christian life when we talk about family ministry. We absolutely need to help our families drive the church home with them. And I'm going to read that passage, that Deuteronomy passage, one more time because it really just is so powerful. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God. The Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. And these words which I command you today shall be in your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall talk of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, when you rise up. You shall bind them as a sign on your hand, and they shall be as frontlets between your eyes. You shall write them on your doorposts of your house and on your gates. In this world we live in, we like to compartmentalize. This is my church life, this is my school life, this is my work life, and all these different things, we try to keep everything nice and neat in compartments. We need to kind of break that up, and we need to teach our parishioners how church doesn't go in a bucket. It's what fills all the buckets, you know. It goes into everything. And we need to really look at all of our programming. This is what family ministry is. It's not, we need to look at all of our programming and say, how are we getting this into the house? Our catechism programs, how are we getting kids to take lessons home with them? With our youth programs, how are they taking these programs home with them? With our Bible studies, what are they doing at home when they're not at Bible studies? With our liturgy, how are we getting them to take that liturgy, that worship home with them and continue throughout the week? So we need to, family ministry works on driving the church home. The next thing is that family ministry is people-centered, not program-centered. So I'm not here today to give you, a big box, a program that you take back and you roll out and say, this is our program and this is how we're going to do it in our church. Now, we do have a parish family night program, but I'll talk about that later. I'm going to talk about that tomorrow night. We do have programs, but this is more of an attitude of how your parish approaches ministry. It's how you reach out to people when they're new. It's the fact that people come to your church and they go into the coffee hour and they're not sitting there by themselves. It's a way that your church operates. They work as family. And the other thing about that is that each of you in this room, not just the ones wearing the collars, can go back and do family ministry right now. Each of our parishes is individual, okay? I can't give you a program because each of your parishes is unique, and you know your parishes, and you know the people and their pain and their joy and their struggles. So that's why just by focusing on the people and what their needs are, that's the foundation of where family ministry begins. The next thing that's really critical about family ministry is that it builds relationships. And there's a beautiful quote by Saint Maria of Paris. I can't say the last name very well, forgive me. And she says, if someone turns with his spiritual world toward the spiritual world of another person, he encounters an awesome and inspiring mystery. He comes into contact with the true image of God and man, with the very icon of God incarnate, in a world with a reflection of the mystery of God's incarnation and divine manhood. So what's important here is that family ministry connects mother to mother, brother to sister, and ultimately child with their Heavenly Father. And for many people that'll come to your parish, it'll be you that will be the first person that reflects Christ to them. And so it is how we witness Christ and how we build relationships and how we love each other that is going to bring people more to Christ. So family ministry builds relationships. It supports people in their current relationships, in their current biological families, in their marriages, in their communities that they're in. And finally, family ministry connects church and community. And what I mean by that, because what people automatically think I mean is that we provide service to our community, which is really important. Anything you can do to outreach to your community, soup kitchens, things like that, that's really important. But I'm talking about something else. It realizes that there are some people in your parish that need more help than you can give them. And it's not a shame to go and look for the people that will provide them with that help. It knows a parish that is that is practicing good family ministry knows who all the good counselors are, knows about social services in the area, knows how to connect the parishioners with the help that they need above and beyond what you can provide them. And that doesn't just help your parishioners, it actually provides a witness, because as you become a parish that refers people for help, and they know, oh, well, this person's from Father Nick's parish, he sends people here from time to time that are struggling. You become known as a parish that really cares and goes out of the way to help the parishioners. And you're witnessing our Orthodox faith to the world. The last thing, not the last thing I want to talk about, but if you don't remember anything else that I say here, this is really important. This is not family ministry. This is not what it looks like, okay? And this isn't what we should be trying to make it look like. If you actually Google family ministry on like Google Images, you get a bunch of pictures that looks like this. Family ministry sometimes looks like this, or this, or this. Family ministry is messy, and it always will be. And what I want to talk about now, I want to pause on this slide a little bit, because this is so essential, and it's what's keeping people away, is a word called shame. And if you think about it, it's in all of our parishes. It's the person that says, I can't go to church right now because everybody knows my kid's on drugs and they're talking about me. It's the person that says, I can't go to church right now because at the last food festival, I acted crazy and screamed my head off about some souvlakia and it wasn't right and I'm too embarrassed to go back. Okay? It's the family that says, you know what, our total family is falling apart right now and I can't go into church because people might know what's wrong. So what is wrong with this picture is that people are staying away from the one place they should be going. And you know why they're not coming? Is because they're afraid people are talking about them. And here's the really sad part. In many cases, they're right. So if you take nothing from here, family ministry embraces people, and it actively works on stopping people from talking about one another. And I'm not preaching up here as someone who's never gossiped. We've all done it, even under the auspices of talking lovingly about someone. But I'm saying it's something we have to actively all work and struggle against doing if we want our parishes to grow. Because there's a lot of people in pain that are trying to hide that from the church. Now, to tell another really great story, I had the good fortune of hearing Father Tsongranis speak a few years ago. And he was talking about raising Lazarus. And he talked about what did people say when he told them to roll away the rock from the tomb. What did they say?
Body's gonna stink.
It's gonna stink. It's gonna stink. And he says that's the thing, is that a lot of our pain, it stinks. And there's nothing we can do to make that stink go away except roll away the rock and be ready to smell it. Because there's not going to be any resurrection if we don't roll away the rock. So we have to, he also said, what is in us that we don't bring up will take us down. We have to be there to help our parishioners with that. And if you guys want to hear somebody say that much more eloquently, there's a postcard over there of our podcast with OCN, and actually Father Tom is interviewed telling the story about talking about sin and fallenness, and it's really beautiful. I would encourage you to play it for your parishioners and have a discussion afterwards. It's only, I think, 20 minutes, but family ministry is okay with having hard conversations, even when we don't know the answer or even when there isn't an answer. I want to tell you about someone that's near and dear to me. Her name was Eleanor, and she was my god sister. And Eleanor Eleanor's no longer with us, but I have no doubt that she was somewhat of a saint in our midst, and not the typical looking one. Eleanor came to Orthodoxy. We found her. She was brought to Orthodoxy through the post office in Modesto, California, where she ran into Father John Magulius and said, "Who are you? Are you a Catholic priest?" And that's exactly how she said it. And he explained, and so she started coming to church. Now, what you need to know about Eleanor is that Eleanor had a horrible, horrible life. She was probably 50s or 60s when she first came to church, probably 50s. And she had experienced every kind of abuse known to man. She didn't have a family that took care of her growing up. And because of that, Eleanor had a variety of mental illnesses and was on public assistance to help her. She was loud, obnoxious, sometimes used words she shouldn't in the middle of church, and sometimes made people cringe to be around her. But here's the thing that Eleanor also did. She used to yell at me something fierce when I would say, "I'm so lucky that happened." She'd say, "Luck is nothing. It's a blessing." And she'd be lecturing me for about 10 minutes. Another thing that Eleanor did on her small government income the week after I got engaged was went and bought a wedding at Cana icon to give to me. She died a week later. So Eleanor sometimes chewed out the priest, used inappropriate language, and made us all uncomfortable to be around, and oftentimes drove us completely nuts. But she taught us something that no one else could. And she taught us what it was to really love. And I'm not saying we did that perfectly, but we learned from Eleanor that to be with Eleanor was just to love her, not try to fix her. Because there was really nothing we could do with Eleanor's life to fix her mental illnesses. All we could do is be there and love her as a child of God, and as one who probably loved God a little more purely than we did, because she clung to him. But I share this story with you because I think it's hard for us sometimes when we have families that we can't fix their problems. But we're never going to be able to fix the hole in that little boy's heart who just lost a parent. We're never going to be able to fix a family that's fallen apart to divorce. We're not going to be able to fix those things. There's always going to be a wound there. But what we can do is hold their hand and love them and allow the Holy Spirit to go in and fill and heal and love on those wounds. And that's what we need to do. Because sometimes we get scared when we don't know how to fix things. And it's okay to say to people, "You know what, I have no idea how to help you, but I'm here with you, and I want to hold your hand, and we're going to pray about this, and I'm going to be right here by your side, but I'm not sure what to do here." But some of our parishioners have issues that big, and you all know this more than I do. So, family ministry is messy, but it's essential, okay? St. John Chrysostom writes, "The human family constitutes the primary and essential element of human society. Peace in society will be a direct result of peace in the family." You know, peace doesn't mean that all of a sudden all is right in the world, as it's reminded us this morning. As Christians, we know how the story ends. Peace is knowing that despite persecutions, violence, and challenges, we belong to God, and He will strengthen us through it. The other reason it's essential is it keeps our focus on God. And St. Anthony wrote, "A time is coming when men will go mad, and when they see someone who is not mad, they will attack him and say, 'You're not mad. You are mad. You're not like us.'" Sound familiar? What do you mean you're not going to sleep with your boyfriend before you marry him? Isn't that what everybody does? What do you mean you're not going to come to soccer on Sunday? Everybody plays soccer on Sunday. Your kid's not going to get into a good college if they don't keep up their soccer. So, how do we give our families the tools to be able to say, "No, We don't do that. We're not going to do that, and this is why, and it's fine if you're gonna do that, but this is how we're gonna do it. How do we bring them into a community that's gonna support them in those decisions? And I think this is really important, because this is what has happened, is how do we reintroduce them to God? Because I think that what the world has done is made God irrelevant to them. Because what's more important? Making money, getting your kid into a good school, being successful. That's more important. Father Peter Chamberis wrote in his book on baptism and chrismation, and I'm not going to quote this well, but the gist is that we spend a lot of time preparing our children to be successful in this world. Do we spend as much time preparing them for the kingdom of God? There is research from the Search Institute in Minneapolis, and they said there's 4 family practices that are particularly important in helping young people grow in faith. First is talking about faith with your mother, talking about faith with your father, having family devotionals or prayer, doing family projects to help other people. Okay, all of these are home-based items. Okay, they happen in the home. They happen with family. We did a study back in 2010, and it was no surprise that when we found out that increased life stressors predicted less attention were given to spiritual practices at home and church. When people are stressed out, they stop coming to church, for the most part, or they stop taking care of themselves spiritually. However, the families that felt the church was reaching out to them, actually grew through their difficulties. When they felt that the church was there for them in a very real way, they actually took steps closer to the church. This is critical for us to realize. Now, what does that reaching out look like? Well, we didn't ask that question, but it doesn't have to be anything huge. It can be a casserole. I heard you guys are going through a rough time. Here's some food. Do you need anything else from us? When you have a new baby, the stress, here's some food. Here's this.